Greetings and welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of UC Weekly News. I'm your host, David Danto, and we have an awesome show this week. My partner, Dave Michels, is joining me, and our special guest this week is Ilya, and I always pronounce your last name wrong. Is it Bukshteyn?
No, yeah, that's perfect,
It
actually.
is. Ilya, give everybody your title in case people don't know. I know you're a vice president, but it was Premium Experiences Teams Premium. Tell me what the
It
title is.
it kept changing. So I'm now corporate vice president, teams calling meetings and devices. So it got a little simpler. I got the C in front of the VP, and it's calling meetings and devices.
Awesome. And where are you based? Are you Seattle based or roughly
I am
Seattle based?
Seattle based. I'm in Kirkland,
Redmond, come
Washington right
on.
now at my house, but yeah, I work from our headquarters.
I used to live in
Awesome.
Kirkland.
That's terrific. So let's start with the elephant in the room. When we were at InfoComm this year, we saw a couple of players who I'm not going to bother naming right now that were showing us the kind of app switching that everybody's always wanted. We used to describe that as the airline ticket printer system, although nobody uses printed tickets anymore.
I don't like the term app switching because when I hear app switching, I think of, spreadsheets to word processing. You're talking about meeting switching.
I'm talking about the experience you have on your mobile device being the experience you have in video conference rooms, where you walk in and you decide that you want a Zoom experience. So you press a button or you invoke a calendar or whatever, and you get the full Zoom room experience. But then your next one is Teams, and you walk in and you get the full Teams experience. And all the different meetings are listed on the screen for you. And I've got to say, I've spoken to end users. I know you have as well. So it's not a one-sided thing, but this is what people have wanted. I've sat in rooms where I've hosted 30 people in a room, and I said, if we could give you Zoom and Teams and Google Meet all on the same device, but you would have to pay for 3 licenses, would that be okay? And everybody raised their hands and said they don't care about the licensing. They just want the experience to be easy. And that's one of the problems in the video conferencing industry. Everybody wants it to just work, but everybody's got a different definition of what just work means. So you can't kind of get there.
Yep.
The thing I put forward, I gotta stop talking and let you talk. The thing I put forward a couple of weeks ago was that, you know what, there's probably no reason anymore from a business standpoint for either Zoom or Microsoft or anybody to be protecting their turf anymore. People have made their choices. Other than a movement here, a movement there, opening this thing up would be easier for everybody. And that's what the end users said. And what's your position? What's your personal feeling about that?
Well, first of all, let me back up a sec, say thank you for having me. We disagree sometimes, including on LinkedIn, but I want to start off by saying your guys' coverage,
If you don't disagree with David, there's something wrong. I mean,
fair enough.
All my life.
So look, like for example, I can't remember 50 page, whatever. It was significant InfoComm coverage that you wrote. I don't agree with all of it, but it was the best in-depth coverage that I saw. So I want to say I very much respect you and others, both of you and others that continue to do in-depth coverage of this space that I love, that I've been working in for, God, I've lost track, let's say 15 years. The fact that we disagree on some stuff, hopefully does not take away from the respect I have for both Daves that I get for the price of one.
I just want to clarify, you
Thank
say 15 years. I'm thinking, how long have you been in this space? I'm thinking LCS, or did you start before LCS?
So it was like before the Placeware acquisition. I did go away and work on some other stuff at Microsoft and then came back. And so, but I've been kind of through it, LCS, OCS, Link, Skype for Business, and then we're coming up, shockingly, on the 10th anniversary this November of Teams GA, which is shocking.
You skipped one. What was that?
What did I skip?
Key system you had? Was it Response Point or something like that? It had a very short
that
life.
one. I don't remember that one. You're right. You got me. But I mean, I was there for in that keynote. We showed off Roundtable for the first time. In one of your videos, you brought up Mr. Danto said, "Oh, Owl invented the category," and you rightfully said no. But they certainly modernized it. But yes, I was there for Roundtable, Tanjay phones, all that stuff.
Okay.
All right, so continue with your thoughts.
Interop. So This is a complex topic, so it's going to take a little bit, and we should go back and forth on it. So let's peel apart, what you said. First of all, what do I believe and what do we believe? Absolutely, we believe that if you're a room system provider and you take over, this is techie talk, but we always used to talk about what comes with taking over input one on the TV in the room, right? Like you've taken over the way people project in the room. You have a responsibility as soon as you do that, we believe, to make sure you can fulfill all the needs of the users in that room. So that's a belief we've had from day one. We've worked our way through those responsibilities. Our initial whole reason for being for Project Rigel, what's become Teams Rooms, is responsibility number one is get into meetings in seconds instead of minutes. Responsibility number two, with high quality audio and video in that order. And responsibility number three, more recently, is to make everybody feel included in the meeting. Now, with the way the industry has played out, we've had responsibility number four, which is for every kind of meeting that people want to join. So we have gone through a journey on that where I'll start with, I got a lot of flack online for not being positive about SIP and H.323. I got certain people saying I'm evil, more or less, and I hate standards. Here's my journey with that. The reason that the way I came up with Project Rigel, I will tell you an anecdote about your old employer, Mr. Danto. I was at Polycom having a big business review, including their CEO at the time. We were in their big room with, I've lost track of how many TVs on all the rooms. And they needed to join, can't remember if it was Skype for Business or Link, but like a meeting on our platform. It's their VTC, and we joined like 15 or 20 minutes late. They could not figure out how to make the join work.
I had that experience myself from that very same space.
And I couldn't help at all because it wasn't anything about, like, their interface was completely foreign to me. I knew it was Polycom software trying to do some sort of a SIP H.323 join. And it was from that when I went back and talked to my bosses at the time, a guy named Zig Serafin, who's gone on to amazing things, and Gurdeep Paul, who's gone on to amazing things. And, we were saying, what do we need to do? We had link room systems, wasn't very popular. We had another project that I ended up having to make the incredibly tough decision that we weren't going to ship. But what I said was, look, people want to be able to walk into the room and join meetings as quickly as, frankly, they dial into audio conferencing on a phone. That was our main competitor. 95% of rooms didn't have room systems. So my belief formed from back then is that the platform providers have the responsibility to own the software and the experience on those devices, because we're going to be held responsible. And I think, is proven true. So that is why I'm not a fan of the older way of doing things. When we built Teams, we made a decision not to build a SIP stack. We built what we call SlimCore, a new media stack. And when we looked at Interop, the first approach we took to it was exactly the same one that most others in the industry did, which is we will offer for cost a gateway that connects to SIP endpoints. And we did that through partners. So we call that Cloud Video Interop, or CVI. We provide a cloud SDK that other companies use. There are fewer than there used to be. So now it's PECSIP and Cisco. But that is expensive, and it is limited. You may not agree with me on this, but from our perspective, it is limited by the capabilities of SIP and H.323. So for example, if we want to support PowerPoint Live, number one request, I would say, for CVI interop customers. PowerPoint Live is not a video stream of content sharing. It is PowerPoint being hosted in the cloud, sharing down into the sessions. So we did end up doing extra work where we basically take a snapshot of each slide and we let the CVI provider piece that together into a video stream and share it with SIP control and H.323. But it's a little bit, I'm not going to call it a hack, but it like one of the main reasons people use PowerPoint Live is so they can embed a video in PowerPoint. Well, that won't work because we're taking a snapshot. So,
and H.323, just to be fair, has a data channel. It just was that the WebRTC stack didn't use the same data channel. So you couldn't make it one way or the other way.
Yeah. Yeah. As far as I know, in talking with a progression of providers, this is the thing I guess I should get across. I would love to do as high fidelity interop as possible because I know customers like the scenario you and I may disagree on, because I know you've said this before, that most customers have 2 platforms or more. I think it was the other Dave on your last show that quoted that. What we hear from our customers is much more, we have one main platform, but we've got to be able to join any external meeting. Now, to be fair, yes, there are, for example, there are quite a few customers who are primary teams and have WebEx as a backup, kind of an emergency backup. There are quite a few customers, not quite a few, there are some customers who are mostly teams, and then one department continues to use Zoom. Now, I will say, in my experience, by the way, that scenario is a time-bound scenario. It eventually goes away. Like, it usually is based on XYZ feature is needed for that department. Eventually, it goes away. Regardless, the scenario of we've got to be able to join any meeting platform because we don't know what external invite we're going to get, 100% righteous. So we looked at CVI, and our conclusion was it's never going to get better than sort of basic video, audio, video-based screen sharing. So then we said, how can we provide interop out of the box, meaning without having to pay extra, to other platforms and without a whole bunch of complexity, I'll come back to that, with security and with, I'll talk about this more, meeting all the management needs of our customers. And myself and a gentleman named Greg Baribolt, who's now at HP, but he used to run Teams rooms for me for quite a while, came up with Direct Guest Join. And what is Direct Guest Join? It is taking the web-based client for other platforms and running it in the room system in a container, in a Chrome container. Now, this is one of the first things I want to point out.
You call it Chrome container, but it's really WebRTC. It is.
There's a reason why I didn't say WebRTC. It is a Chrome container. Whether it uses WebRTC or not is actually up to each platform provider. So Zoom, for example, semi uses WebRTC in their right. website. Google is 100% WebRTC.
Yeah, and I think you are too.
We use WebRTC for the media. Yeah, Zoom sort of do. There's like a long article online about it.
Yeah.
But it actually doesn't matter. Like, it's the Chrome container that is the common denominator, not how anything within that Chrome container does media or communications.
But the key thing there is that Chrome container doesn't have anything but a container, and it downloads the entire applet on demand.
Yeah, so the reason we like that approach is there was no state on the room system. To go back to something you said, can I call you Danto? So because you're two Daves, so like
yeah, anything you like.
Okay, so what Danto said.
You call me Dave and call him the other Dave.
The other Dave, okay. D1, D2. We absolutely agree that room systems have to just work. The term I use a lot, the customers use with me, is these are appliances. These are appliances that are not directly managed. It's a weird term. They are, of course, business managed, but there's no user sitting there going, oh, I need to update an app. Oh, this app needs new permissions. Anything that needs physical intervention is a huge cost. Still to this day, it's like it's the limiting factor on how many room systems our customers deploy is how often do they need somebody physically to go to each room. So for us, the huge benefit of the web approach, the Chrome containers, there's no state stored locally. There's no need to go use another company's portal to manage that. There's no security challenges if it's designed correctly. It's a web app. But there's also other benefits. Like, why did we think now back then was a good time for Direct Guest Join? It's because all of us platform providers had rebuilt our web apps to be effectively the same as our clients. And this is one thing I was going to tee up for debate, let's say, because a lot of times, Danto, D2, you say what people want is native. What is native? Teams desktop is the same web code running in a web view as what we have in a browser. The difference is the media stack, because we don't download our media stack. It's WebRTC, but it is the same bits.
Well, native, in my opinion, refers to if you have that one division in the company that you described that hasn't switched over and they walk into the room, they want the UI that they're familiar with. They don't want to have a different UI. And they also want that UI, especially when the meeting isn't taking place. They want to know how to get into the meeting using the same UI that they always use.
Okay.
So
the big green button.
So this great discussion. So first of all, when you're in the meeting, Teams web, Teams desktop, exact same UI. And I believe this is true for WebEx and Zoom now too. I don't know.
Except for ingest, except for dual screen, except for some of the other features.
We'll get to those. Those are features. You said UI.
UI, right?
The
UI right.
is the same, right? Now, you are absolutely right. When we did Direct Guest Join, our baseline was, let's make it good enough for that occasional join scenario. And there's some things that were hard. For example, there's no web app in the world that I know of that allows two windows that are orchestrated, synchronized. So dual screen, we said, nope. Hardware ingest. Turns out every vendor does their HDMI ingest a little bit differently, like what we expect as a camera. So we didn't tackle that. And there's actually a few others. So we ship Direct Guest Join. Some customers, you've told me, D2, sir, that people despise and hate with fearless, with enormous passion, Direct Guest Join. I will tell you, some customers are super happy. For the occasional join scenario, not the department, but the like, I get some invite. Like, I don't have to pay. I don't have to worry about management. It just works. But you are right. The top asks we got were dual screen, HDMI ingest, a few more recently. Make sure to show the roster, show the full chat. As meetings got richer post-pandemic, the UX got richer. And this is on me. We didn't keep up with Direct Guest Join. Like, we had other priorities we were trying to ship. That's my fault. I'm ultimately responsible. So that gets us to today and kind of where are we? People can choose CVI. But to your point, there is a set of customers who say, when I walk into the room, I want the Zoom room or Teams room experience. And then when I join another meeting, I want a richer. I'm not going to say native because, like I said, it's the same bits, but I want a richer experience, dual screen, etc. So the first vendor that we were able to do something with around that is Cisco. Cisco on their devices have a hypervisor architecture effectively. They use very high-end hardware with lots of memory. They have their own kind of Linux-based OS, and they're able to do a container, one container. This is important. And I'm paraphrasing what they told me. They're able to host one container for another system. And so we were able to strike a partnership that I would have years ago never said would have been possible, where they ship devices that when you walk in are Teams rooms. But when you join a WebEx meeting, it's the exact same flow as direct guest join, but they intercept that. And instead of doing the WebEx client, if you pay a license, they do the WebEx app. So you get all the goodness. And they've since done basically the same thing with Zoom. First, they did Zoom behind WebEx. Now they've done Zoom in front, WebEx behind. It's always 2 is the max number. And I think that caused you guys to say, why can't they do magically lots and lots of apps? And then these other ISVs did something else that caused you, I think your quote was, Ilya should get out of the way of the people who can do, because he says he can't, something like that.
Well, not you. That was not directed at you personally, although you can certainly interpret it that way. It was people should never stand in the way of somebody who's doing something by saying it can't be done. That's an engineering term for decades.
Now, let me explain why I still think I am right in saying something can't be done, because what they're doing is totally different. What you and I had talked about is, I think, or at least the way I interpreted, why can't you put Zoom rooms and Teams rooms and WebEx rooms as apps all on the same device and just switch between them? Because look, these ISVs are doing it. So on one hand, I want to say thank you, because I didn't know about at least one of those ISVs, and I've been able to do a deep dive and say, like, well, what did they do? What they did is used Azure Communication Services, ACS. It is an SDK that we offer that lets apps join Teams meetings. It was built for the scenario where you don't expect the user to download an app, but you still want to host a Teams meeting within your app. The doctor, the financial advisor, right? These ISVs took that and built their own apps that join Teams meetings. Now, is that native? I would say no, because to me, it's not a Teams app. It is not a Microsoft app. In that scenario, we support the SDK. We have no support that we offer for that ISV app. In fact, they can customize the UX if they want. I actually have no idea if they support dual screen or not. None of the OEMs seem to know. I will tell you, ACS out of the box does not. Could they have done a bunch of code to do 2 windows and try to? They could. I don't know if they support HDMI ingest.
But that's the intent of ACS, right? The intent of ACS was to create APIs so that people can build their apps with communications.
Yes.
It's basically a CPaaS play using Teams capabilities.
Yes, the intent was never to support room systems. No one in the ACS
you don't get to draw those lines, though. You don't get you enable SDKs, you enable APIs that people can use Teams capabilities.
Well, what I want to make sure to clarify is there's no one in the ACS team that is thinking about HDMI ingest. Like, that's like, you say that to them and they go, huh? Like,
there's nobody at Twilio that was thinking about Ubers when Uber can't figure out how to use texting in their app.
And I do want to clarify, because I think actually the intent of ACS has changed over time. ACS you can think of as a Teams SDK. It is no longer a Twilio compete. We're not trying to make a business out of this and a big platform play. It is a Teams SDK. It is to enable apps to join Teams meetings. All I'm saying on the not designed for room systems is there is no one there saying, we got to build a feature where we support dual screens. That is so foreign to them, because they're like, well, like, it's an app that pops up a window with a Teams meeting. Regardless, let me come back. All I was saying is I don't know what those ISVs do with ACS. I know what ACS supports out of the box. So in my opinion, that is not native Teams. It is apps that join Teams meetings. It is for sure when they're in the meeting offering a Teams UI. What parts of that UI are displayed or how it is formed is up to the ISV. That is what they've done, where you can pick an app that joins Teams meetings. You can pick an app that joins Zoom meetings. I assume using the Zoom SDK or the WebEx SDK. I don't know. That, and again, the reason I'm being, you could argue, pedantic is that's not the same as taking the Teams Room app and living side by side with a Zoom Room app. So where does that all leave us? Well, there's a couple of things I want to point out about this ACS approach. ACS has two modes: join meetings anonymously or log in. About half of Teams meetings do not allow anonymous join. So customers using those apps could hit meetings that you just can't join unless they log in. The key thing about logging in is we are very clear in our licensing that any shared, the basically user licenses can't be multiplexed. So the slight issue that we have with the guidance that these ISVs provided, one is some of them use our trademarks that they're not really supposed to do and our logos, but that's fine. We'll deal with that. But the other is they told customers, hey, no problem. Use a user license, E1, E3, and log in, provide that to the app and you're good. That's not true. That the customer would be breaking our license restrictions. They have to use a room license because it's a shared device. Now, if they use a room license, they log in, that's great. Like, I have no problem with that. To your point, D2, Danto, like earlier, if customers want to pay multiple room licenses, that's fine. I have no issues with that. What I come away from all of this whole discussion saying is, I need to put more attention onto direct guest join. It has been too long that we were focused somewhere else. Because if people are willing to use third-party apps and pay a room license, there's clearly something we're missing. So we are going to add more capabilities and meet all of the top customer needs in direct guest join. We're going to support dual screen. We're going to support HDMI in chest. We're going to support showing roster and chat. We are working with the other platform providers on this, and we'll have an official announcement where we'll do it together with them in the fall, and we'll deliver this stuff. And the other, for dual screen, I should be really clear, there's multiple ways of doing this, by the way. The most difficult one is trying to split the gallery across dual screen. So we're going to start off with either content or active speaker on one screen and gallery on the other. Main thing is you're not going to have a black screen. We will later get to splitting gallery. I know there's also some folks that want 1080p. WebRTC today does 720. As far as I know, nobody does 1080p. We're going to work on that too.
Nice.
We have prototypes. We'll get it done. So over the next year, we will meet all of the needs we know of from customers for a richer experience with direct guest join. And thanks to Danto, your suggestion, we'll probably rename it so that people maybe don't have whatever they associate negatively with direct guest join. So that's on us. Like, as a platform provider, we will have out-of-box interop that meets customer needs. Because I agree with you, there's no negative, there's no reason not to have great interop. If people still want to use these ISV apps and they're licensed correctly, great. The other thing I do want to mention, now coming back, why wouldn't I go work with Zoom and get a version of Zoom Rooms that runs behind Teams Rooms? Or build a version of Teams that runs behind Zoom Rooms? So a couple of other things you guys should know. 60 to, I think it's now 70% of our tenants, our customers, require any endpoint to have full MDM, mobile device management. That means it is managed by us, managed by the customer using the Microsoft Cloud. Teams doesn't have a separate identity the way Zoom does. You know, you have a Zoom identity. Teams is a Microsoft 365 identity. So if a customer tries to log into one of these ACS apps and it's a customer that requires MDM, they will either need to go to their security department and get an exception for that device, or the login will fail because that device has an app, but it doesn't have an MDM client. And building an MDM client for an AOSP device is a ton of work because we know because we do that. And there is no model for having multiple MDM clients on an Android device or on an
But the point, I follow everything that you said, which is actually pretty stunning, because we're really down in the weeds. But what I don't understand is why an MDEP-based Android device running Microsoft Teams can't run the Zoom native application in the foreground while Teams is still running in the background.
Okay, so in that
or you know, we shall be fair, or Google Meet or WebEx or anything that might come along.
So if it could, but what would have to happen is the customer, who at that point is a Zoom customer. If you have Zoom in the foreground, let's assume they're a Zoom customer. The customer would have to enroll that device into Microsoft MDM, manage that device in Microsoft MDM, and we have no idea how that would work, or to be very specific, we think it wouldn't, with two management clients on the same device. Zoom have an agent that lives at the Android layer that makes sure when they push an update, it gets pushed right away. We have an agent, but our agent is the Intune agent. Like, it's the MDM client. We don't have we used to actually have 3 agents on a device long ago. It's all just one. It's a Microsoft agent. Those 2 agents, like, nobody has ever done the work or tested the work to say, do the 2 agents get along? But I do want to go back to this ISV scenario for a sec, because I think it's important. The heartburn I have about that scenario is that customers are going to hold Microsoft accountable, because when they go log in and the login fails because that Android device doesn't have an MDM client, they contact us, and there's really nothing we can do other than say you should get a security exemption.
The support needs to come from whoever is offering the solution. It can't come from Microsoft.
Yeah, and as far as I know, there's not really a way for somebody to say, like, those apps are basically an Android store app on that device. So what would have to happen would be that custom store, let's say the Jabra, or sorry, the Neat Open, for example, would have to get a Neat Open version of an Intune MDM client. And that's a bunch of development work on the Intune team and a bunch of development work on Neat. And to be very fair or kind of blunt about it, I don't think the Intune team would build that based on the volume.
But that's what you're saying is we built a proprietary closed model, so don't complain that it's a proprietary closed model. But you need to create a license that is not MDM required, that does not require iTunes, Intune.
I got to interrupt you. Nothing to do with license. Nothing to do with license.
You said a MDM license is required, and
nope, not license. Sorry, let me correct you. There are 2 things here. For any shared device, the license of that account has to be the Room Pro license. That is available, no problem. If Ilya company buys a device with one of these ISV apps, I can go buy a Room Pro license from Microsoft, assign it to an account, and have the app log in with that account. No problem.
Okay.
If Ilya company sets a policy that says all of my endpoints have to be MDM compliant, which 70% roughly of our customers have done, that's not a license thing. And that's nothing to do with closed proprietary. That's us providing a tool to customers for security that 70% of our customers have
That's a
chosen
policy,
to
is what you're
implement.
saying. The
Yep.
policy.
And MDM requires a client on the device. We have built clients for the standard Google Android, for iPhone, and of course, Windows and Mac. Anything else that is some AOSP platform would require a specific MDM client, which requires the OEM / Android provider to work with Microsoft. And it is possible. It's software. It's technically possible. But realistically, the Intune team has and it's actually the Entra team now, has a lot of work that they need to do. Are they going to go build a custom client for the N1000, OEM custom AOSP providers? No, they probably aren't. But there's even a bigger problem. How many MDM clients is that device going to have? If you have apps that join Zoom and WebEx, they all have their own version of agents that manage the device. And there again, like those agents are not, you cannot have a device managed at the device OS level by multiple agents. If one of those agents says, I want to wipe the device, I no longer trust it, does that win? Because our MDM agent can do that, by the way. An admin can go say, this device, I know this is weird for a room system. I'm using a mobile phone example. This device has been stolen, wipe it. Do we win or does this Zoom agent win? So what I'm trying to point out is room systems are different from phones in that there's no end user who gets to decide, I am going to use the Zoom client in a anonymous mode. I'm going to give Microsoft, I'm going to give my customers, Microsoft tenant, the ability to manage this device with MDM. It is much more complicated in the room system scenario. So that's why we still believe that having this web-based approach where you don't have to have multiple apps and multiple agents on the same device is the only viable model. And sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm going to be cognizant of time here because I know we wanted to get to a couple of other topics. The one thing that I'll do is I think you deserve a buy on saying you've admitted that your preferred solution isn't the best, and you're shortly going to be coming out with something better. So I'm perfectly happy to hold my criticism until we see that. But the two or three difficulties with direct guest join as it has existed is one, it requires an agreement between the various two companies that are supporting it. So it works with some, but not with others. And in order for it to be an industry solution, everybody would need to buy into it. So that's number one, that's a consortium. And then, as you point out, the feature rich and experience rich situations before and after the meeting, because I would agree with you, majority of companies have picked their platform. Those companies are doing 2 and 3 and 4 different types of calls per day, even if they're not a very large portion of them. Yep. But then you've got the companies out there that have different divisions on different platforms. And then you've got the companies out there in their boardrooms and high-end rooms where they've got a separate device for each platform. They've literally got a Zoom codec and a Microsoft codec and a WebEx codec. And it shouldn't. You're right. It's also
that shouldn't happen, and
we should have a way to deal with that.
Of them,
no, but it's there, and it's usually in the highest end rooms. So
yeah, because there's unlimited budget for those rooms.
Right.
The other thing I'll say, by the way, having Zoom rooms behind Teams or Teams, that would absolutely require a same consortium. Like there's no way we could go grab the Zoom client and figure out a way to just put it and ship it. That would require an agreement with us and Zoom. So I don't see how that's different from direct guest join in that
Right.
sense.
Well, and I agree with you that you tend to engage in a lot of arguments on LinkedIn, so I won't blame you or the people you're arguing with. But one of the arguments that I've seen recently is, well, that's where H323 and SIP came from. It came from the ITU. It came from a
Yeah.
consortium group. So again, that's out there, that maybe it's not something that you need to develop. Maybe it's something that you need to propose and let other people get involved with as well, and see if there's a way that it can be a win-win-win, because that's
I
what I
mean,
think everybody wants.
Ilya's personal opinion, the best way to make something take 3 years instead of a few months is to give it to a standards body and wait to see what happens.
Camel is a horse designed by committee. Yes, I've heard that
Yes,
before. So
exactly.
some balance there, but like again, I'm not gonna offer criticism or critique to something that you don't have out there yet. So let's
Not yet.
take
Not
a
yet.
look. Okay. Not yet. Right. Yeah. I'm gonna tell everybody how bad it is after you've come out with it, not
Fair
before.
enough.
Um,
Fair enough.
you did give a presentation at
Yes.
InfoComm this year. InfoComm was a terrific experience. It's the busiest I've ever been at InfoComm. Dave, you missed it this year, but you watched them all online. Took them
I
a
watched
couple
every
of months
keynote
to get
online.
them.
Yes.
So what were your key comments that you wanted Ilya to address regarding his keynote?
Well, I watched the video where both of you talked about my keynote, and Mr. Michels here started by saying Ilya's I thought I had a relatively clever opening gambit, I have to say, if I'm being immodest. And Mr. Michels was like, it completely went off the rails.
I just downloaded the transcript, and the word Rails does not exist in that transcript. However, that's the transcript from YouTube, so who knows?
So if I remember right, you said I was totally wrong on the bank teller example.
Bank tellers,
Then
yes.
when I brought up the minute rice, it completely went off the rails. I still want to
Yes, yes.
maybe use different words. So just so you know, on that opening gambit, uh, I do think we're both right on bank tellers as we've traded messages in that the ATM, which was expected to kill bank branches, didn't. But, and so you look at bank branches, they kept rising. They did hit a downturn with the mobile phone. So there are fewer bank branches today than there were at its height. I still maintain that humans in banks are not going to go away. I think we disagree on this. We'll see. For
They're
lots of reasons
gone.
that we can discuss.
Gone.
I think you're both making the point that I make all the time, which is when you speak with an AI agent, it's going to tell you you're right no matter what you're saying. So I think we have to agree to the fact that you both researched your points and both got affirmations, but you're getting affirmations on opposite points. That's a different problem that none of us are going to solve.
Well, none of it's
Well,
relevant. It
that's
was
more
just
true on the minute rice thing. I got the minute rice thing from watching an episode of The Food That Built America on, I don't know, I watch it on Prime, whatever. And they did a thing on minute rice that I thought was fascinating. I love that show. But they mentioned that there was this concern that restaurants were going to go away. So I asked Copilot, and it said yes. In the 40s, I think for about a decade, there was all these articles in restaurant trade publications that said making home cooking easier was going to make restaurants go away. So that was my data point. Now, I could not find afterwards an exact link between minute rice and that fear. So Mr. Michels was correct on that. Aside from all that, so us disagreeing about how clever I was. Aside from all that, the thing I want to mention is uh, I thought it was interesting that you guys first critiqued it for like, oh my gosh, it was an hour. Boy, Ilya's taking a lot of time. And then said, look at all the stuff Ilya didn't talk about. Why didn't he talk about MDEP? Why didn't he talk about places? There must be some secret strategic reason. There wasn't. It was an hour, and I chose to cover the stuff where I thought we had more news. So I want to reaffirm MDEP continues to be incredibly important for us. You are completely right. It is in a different division of Microsoft. It's part of the OS, the Windows division, and they're doing a bunch of things outside of Teams that are fantastic. So Project Solera, we announced that I would have had absolutely nothing new to say about it. So I chose not to use time.
Yeah. I would point out to you that a number of people in the audience, the core AV people, didn't understand why you spend so much time on phones.
Yeah, I was gonna.
And a number of the integrators who are selling phones approached me directly and said, wow, it was great that he talked about phones because we want to sell the phones. And the agents that he's talking about aren't going to do anything for rooms, but boy, they're going to be great for selling phones.
But then
So,
I talked about facilitator in rooms, but
you did, and I love the facilitator, the ability
uh,
to make a Zoom call for me. I saw that
so
specifically. So yeah, you know, what's the old joke? We're an adult audience here, and opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one. So I'm not sure that any of those criticisms are valid.
I think the point that we were trying to make though is you had an hour-long keynote and you had no rules. You get to choose whatever you want to talk about, and after about 45 minutes, it seemed like you talked about everything. But then I realized you didn't talk about everything. And so the point that we were trying to make is what didn't he talk about and why? Because there was no rules. You could talk about anything you
yeah.
want. And I paid a lot of attention, for example, at ISE when you presented, because we follow you, like Grateful Dead heads, we're just follow you wherever you go. And you kept on mentioning, for example, Microsoft Places
Yes,
at ISE. And here at this event, Zoom
I
had
did.
made a lot of
Yeah.
noise about their space management solution.
Yep.
And so it's interesting he didn't mention Places at
So
InfoComm.
these things are related, just so you know. I had what I thought was some pretty impactful news in the phone space. The fact that uh, the intelligent call delegation, but also the we internally call it mainline agent, mainline attendant. It's called Teams Phone Agent now. I always forget what marketing tells me to call
I
stuff.
got it wrong in the videos, I recall. I mean, it's hard to keep up. Yeah.
Um, like that was big news, I thought. And we didn't have another good forum to try to make a big deal out of those because, again, as much as you guys maybe will say I'm wrong, we chose not to go to Enterprise Connect because, look, the number of customers there is like sub 500. And it's really, and just so you guys know, because you were like, why didn't Ilya do a keynote? I 100% offered to do a keynote. The folks running Enterprise Connect asked for a 6-digit sum for me to do a keynote. I thought that was reverse logic, and that didn't make sense for us to address 500 customers.
Just let me clarify that one point. I never suggested that you should have done a keynote. I suggested that somebody from Microsoft should have attended the show. So
Yeah.
Yeah, that is an important
I could have
point. That is
sworn one of
important.
you said like, oh, they could have done a keynote even if they didn't have a booth. Sorry if I'm wrong. I thought I heard that.
Okay.
Yeah, we were gonna send somebody from my team, and and that person was out sick, and we made a late call to say it wasn't worth it to try to switch and so forth. I will say, like, I know you guys think Microsoft is sort of bottomless pit of money, and in some ways, based on what we're spending on AI, you could say that. I have a very finite travel budget, so I choose to like the way I measure travel is how many customers or partners or external folks do we get to talk to. InfoComm, 35% was customers, so it's 10,000-ish roughly. EC has been just dropping like crazy in terms of number of customers. And the partners that are there, I talk to all the time at lots of different forums and venues. The one audience that I miss, honestly, was analysts. So, as part of the AVIXA board, I asked whether they could do an analyst program that they've started. Plus, I'm going to do more from my team to talk with analysts regularly. So, so EC just didn't make sense. And as such, I chose to do more of my time at InfoComm on calling, partially with the hope that, by the way, that conversation becomes part of that AV conversation. And the nice thing for me was I ended up having, I think, 5 times as many customer meetings at this InfoComm as I had last year. And I would say half of them, the customers talked about phone and rooms and Places. And to finally answer your Places point, Places is actually now part of my team just recently. So it's not that I don't care about it. It's not that it was on some other team. I think it's a very important part of an AI powered workplace story. We didn't have anything new. And so when I looked at my hour and chose the things I wanted to cover, I tended to focus on the things where there's news, there's new stuff, there's things we want to make a big deal about. So,
Right, so we got about 5 minutes left. I'm going to
yes,
stop you there because I know you wanted to
fair
talk
enough.
about. I wanted to talk about AVIXA before we
Yes.
finish this, and to do it in the briefest time possible. Let's just acknowledge the fact that AVIXA is at a turning point right now.
You got to
Um,
explain that AVIXA runs InfoComm.
InfoComm. Well, it used to be ICIA, and then they took the name InfoComm, and then they just recently changed it to AVIXA, which and you can read some of my articles about how bad I think that suggestion was. But the idea is it's about experiences, and I would like to see it become more than it is. And take advantage of this turning point. And I know you're on the board right now, and I think that's something you like as well. So I'll give you the last word to try and talk about where you want to go with it. I just think that more thinking needs to take place in terms of how we outreach to the community, both analysts, as you point out, and users, separating out educational from advertising and from advertorial, and how we give people that have supported the show for 30 years the same opportunity that you had at a stage, because I heard a lot of them moaning about it in the background as well. I'll leave the names out, but will you help be part of that transition, or is that something you're aware of as well?
Uh, so I volunteered I don't get paid for being on the board. They're not paid positions. I volunteered to be on the board starting this past January. It's a 2-year term. And then if you proceed into one of their, what do they call it, board leadership positions like vice chairman, chairman, secretary, treasurer, that adds more years. The reason I volunteered, and my EA, my chief of staff, were not for me volunteering, to be totally honest with you. They looked at my calendar and said, "What are you doing?" The reason I volunteered is I think our industry that I care a lot about could end up in a bad spot if we continue focusing on Ferraris instead of Corollas. Like if we're focused on the highest end, hand built, super cool systems. And by the way, my focus is on the corporate end. I don't really know very much about the state. I love the AV and the stadiums and all that stuff. I got this amazing opportunity at InfoComm to be at the Stanley Cup final, which I would have never gotten if I didn't know some people at AVIXA. It was incredible, super thankful. I just don't understand that part. I do understand the corporate part well. I'm very worried that if our industry in that area does not adapt to lower price, high volume, i.e. Corollas, AI powered, that we're going to be in a bad spot. So that's why I volunteered. What does that mean for AVIXA? My own belief is AVIXA should work more closely with platform vendors. So I thought it was a great thing that I had zero direct influence. The board never discussed keynotes. My team that talks about Microsoft presence at InfoComm did, of course, say Ilya would love to do a keynote and we think it would be good. AVIXA operational staff choose that. But I thought it was a great thing that they had Cisco and Microsoft, me and Espen, because that is those platform providers power a lot of the customers that are there and the business for the integrators, the resellers, et cetera. So as the industry adapts, I do think it's a great thing for AVIXA to work more closely, including trying to bring communities, our M365 community. Would I love for it to be co-hosted with InfoComm? Again, Ilya's personal opinion. I think that'd be awesome. Can we bring more of the communities together that do have a platform focus?
And bring the Stanley Cup champions too.
Oh yeah, of course. Can we take the team's training that I have to try to get out somehow to my partners and make it easily available through AVIXA? Yes, we announced that. We're going to do that. That doesn't take away from any of what you said, D2, Danto. Like, I do think AVIXA should be out promoting the industry and evangelizing with governments, regulators. I do think AVIXA's got to provide a lot of value to its members, some of which should be platform neutral, some of which should, I think, be specific to the platform that they're working on. So that's why I'm there. I'm there because I care about the industry after being here from day one at Microsoft through to now, 10 years of Teams this November. Um, uh, and like, as far as your comment about other manufacturers, that is up to the people that run AVIXA to figure out what does best for InfoComm. My input on the board is let's make InfoComm as big, as impactful, and frankly, and this is a part that was maybe controversial a couple of years ago, more than just the trade show floor. And I think you two talked about this of like, there's the conference, there's the other stuff. How can they, if I had a criticism of ISE, I would say it is too trade show floor focused. It's huge, it's growing, too trade show floor focused. I would love to see a keynote program, an analyst program, like more things to expand it to be an industry event. And that's what I hope AVIXA does.
Interestingly, we used to do a program called Super Tuesday.
Yes, you
People would
mentioned
come
that.
out on Tuesdays and we would have a full program. In fact, Snora actually presented it one of those years ago, and I ran. So I think we're running into a time crunch, but I agree with you. It would be worth
Just
it.
so you know, you posted that video while I was at the AVIXA board retreat, and I brought up the word Super Tuesday at the board session where we were talking about brainstorming our input for InfoComm. So I did forward that.
Yeah, and I did speak to some of the people who are very long timers running the AVIXA program, and they said, look, we may be going back to some of the original ideas we had pre the CEO that's there, which includes the PETSI, which is the Professional Education Committee, and some of the other things. So I agree with you. I think people can sacrifice another day and a half to make a richer show where presentations are a little bit more separate from the trade show floor, and everybody gets their say. And I agree with you. I can't thank you enough for spending the time here. Obviously, we just scratched the surface, and it's been an hour already. I would offer you the opportunity to come back again later in the summer if we want to re-go over any of this stuff. And certainly, we're going to be sitting here with bated breath to look at what the next innovation of not direct guest join, but whatever we're calling it is, comes out. Because I think everybody
I just
wants to
want
see it.
to thank both of you. For anyone watching this, reach out to me on LinkedIn if you have any questions about anything I said. I try to respond there. And I'll just say, look, the thing I hope if people take away from this is I am not evil anti-SIP guy. I want to have great meeting experiences. That's why I come to work for people in rooms. I just think that there are deeper implications for some of this stuff than maybe come from the surface. So I appreciate the time from both of you and absolutely want to continue working with you and getting your input. And yeah, of course I'll come back. Maybe not summer because it's mostly over and I turns out I may have to take my kid to for the first time boarding school, which is a whole separate thing, but in the fall.
Okay, we'll definitely work something out. We'll see you at another trade show or at another event, and I do appreciate that. We didn't even get to the fact that LinkedIn has been falling apart lately, so that's a topic for another
Oh,
time and
another
another person
conversation.
at Microsoft. But Dave, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it, and thank you very much for joining us for this one. We will see you on next week's show. Take care.